So welcome back to the third round of, I should say, final installment of the three marks of existence offering that I'm giving to you over the last couple of weeks. And to provide a brief recap of this series up to now, in the first class, we covered impermanence and its really powerful effects on our day-to-day lives. In the second, we dove headfirst into dukkha and explored its causes and ways to be free of it. As for this third class, and last offering, you might have guessed from the theme of the meditation that we'll be digging into anatta or emptiness or not self. And so I'm going to be presenting a slightly revamped version of a talk that I actually gave on anatta to the Sangha. It was almost 2 years ago. It was actually my very first Dhamma talk. And so some of you have heard this offering before, some of you haven't. I've had a few new insights since then, so I'll share those with you. So bear with me here. And let's kick it off. So one day back while I was taking the class on emptiness that really gave me some really great insights, I was doing a walking meditation. And I had a revelation that began by recalling a conversation that I had with my senior manager like a few days before. And this revelation was like being like a super bright, like light bulb moment, like the light bulb above the head, like an aha moment. And the moment was related to me practicing with this specific sutta that we were given as homework for that month's class module. And I had been studying it the day before. As an aside, shout out to walking meditation, like the redheaded stepchild of meditation practices. Nobody loves it, right? Doesn't have like a cool or sexy feel of like sitting half or full lotus. But I have found it to be really, really a treasure in digesting Dhamma. I've had several like drop-in revelations doing a walking meditation. So I'm just putting it out there, kick it around. I digress. Anyway, I'm going to read the sutta to you, but before I do, a definition of emptiness might be helpful for those not fully familiar with it. So, emptiness, at least in Buddhist terms, refers to the absence of inherent, independent existence in all phenomena. All right. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'd had an understanding of the meaning of the definition intellectually for a while because people told me what it meant. But I'd always struggled with like what it actually meant in and for my everyday life. I mean, it always been just kind of this incredibly abstract teaching to me. I mean, like I'm phenomena, right? So how do I not inherently exist? I mean, I have like defining characteristics that I've had all of my life. Like I'm practical, I'm dependable, I'm stubborn as hell. I am self-motivated, I am action-oriented, right? Among many other things. Not to mention my physical attributes, like I'm black, I'm male, I'm athletic, like, and I always have been, like all of these things ever since I can remember. And my family would absolutely agree with all of that. So tell me then, with this much like corroborative evidence of my seemingly fixed attributes, how don't I exist? I mean, those attributes are me, right? And if I'm not me, then who or what am I? We'll come back to that. So today I want to talk to you about what I've come to understand and experientially now so far about emptiness that actually explains why neither you nor I inherently exist. Newsflash, you might not know that. And how that experiential understanding is manifesting into everyday situations as opposed to being this like mysterious, non-approachable abstraction. Again, I'll come back to all of that, but for now, I want to read you and I'm probably going to butcher this, the Nagota Sutta. All right, so at Savatthi, the venerable Kakanagota went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, Sir, they speak of this thing called right view. How is right view defined? The Kakanagota, the world mostly inclines to one of two views, existence and non-existence. But when you truly see the origin of the world with right understanding, you won't have the notion of non-existence regarding the world. And when you truly see the cessation of the world with right understanding, you won't have the notion of existence regarding the world. The world is, for the most part, shackled by attraction, grasping, and insisting. But if, when it comes to this attraction, grasping, mental fixation, insistence, and underlying tendency towards preferences, You don't get involved with or cling to these attachments, clingings, fixations of awareness, biases, or obsessions, nor resolved on the idea of myself. You will have no doubt or uncertainty that what arises is just suffering arising, and what ceases is just suffering ceasing. And your knowledge about this is independent of the view of others. This is how right view is defined. All exists. This is one extreme. All does not exist. This is the second extreme. And avoiding these two extremes, the realized one teaches by the middle way. Really love this part, so get with me on this. Ignorance is a condition for preferences. Preferences are a condition for consciousness. Consciousness is a condition for name and form, six senses, contact, feelings, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, aging, and death. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. That's it. That's all of it. It's right there. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes cessation of name and form, six senses, feelings, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, aging, and death. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. So with the sutta, you're supposed to read it like four times, each time with a particular theme in mind and a related exercise after each reading. And so I was amazed how this technique like helped me to drop deeper and deeper into the sutta every time I read it. You just drop more and more into it. And I definitely left that exercise with something to chew on. But I was unaware of the depth of what it started opening up inside of me. I didn't really know what was happening. So back to the revelation. And this is kind of basic and see if you guys hear yourself in any of this. So I'm in sales currently, and my senior manager and I were having a meeting in which she was telling me how great it was that I was number one in production for that quarter, right? So I replied, I really didn't care about being number one. I had a certain amount of money I wanted to make, wasn't really worried about my status. So now that was true and not true, like paradoxically, right? At the same time, because there is a me that's humble, or at least wants to be humble and be known as being humble to my boss, who, by the way, knows I'm a Buddhist practitioner, right? No pressure. There's also a me that likes being number one with all the things that it brings, right? Number one brings a level of economic security because I get a nice paycheck for being number one. Number two, it puts management's eyes on me in a positive light, which of course increases my job security. And number three, it brings a bit of admiration from my coworkers, right? They're like, this guy's number one. So with all these factors, like I feel security, like some worthiness is popping in there. Maybe a little superiority, just a little bit. I'm better than y'all. I am, right? I mean, who would like to feel all these things, whether you're supposed to like to feel them or not? So, but there's another me that actually doesn't want to be number one because it brings a level of expectation that clashes with the experience of impermanence. Class number one. I won't necessarily be number one the next quarter. So maybe the bosses train their attention on the new number one. And maybe I'm not admired by my coworkers next quarter as they see my being number one as kind of a one-off or flukish. Maybe those feelings of security, that worthiness, that superiority, they'll slip into the feelings of insecurity, imposter syndrome, maybe a little bit of inferiority. If you've ever been a commissioned employee, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. Then there's the me that doesn't care if I'm number one or not, right? Or about the additional money that being number one brings, because it's aware that I'm more than sufficiently resourced. And that attachment to being number one brings wild swings in personality, in personal reality, like I mentioned before. It's unsteady. Now, all that didn't come into all those details didn't pop into my moment at the mind when I was doing walking meditation, but it felt like it was internally synthesized all together. And then like a question arose in my mind with the intensity of a thunderclap. It was like, boom, who the hell are all these me's? Like with all these different and contrasting agendas. And then lines from the sutta started popping into my mind and more insight started to pour in. So as I examined all of these me's more closely, one synchronicity strikingly clear. They're all conditioned, right? The me that wants to be humble is conditioned by the fact that humility is a valued trait in our society. I mean, we're taught to be humble growing up, aren't we? The me that wants to be number one and the me that doesn't want to be number one are both conditioned by my need for security, praise, and belonging in a capitalistic society that often ties those aspects to assets and to status. Lastly, the me that doesn't care about either the money or the status is conditioned by y'all. I'm a Buddhist, right? I'm not supposed to want any of that stuff. Want to know what I didn't see in my close examination of my mini me's? I didn't see a me that was not conditioned, a me that was inherent, right? And let's dig into that word because that's the key. It's not that you don't exist; you don't inherently exist. So, according to Buddhist thought, inherent is the idea that something has an independent, permanent, unchanging essence or nature that exists regardless of other factors. Again, something has an independent, permanent, unchanging essence or nature that exists regardless of other factors. None of my me's fit that definition. All arose depending on some aspect, and that aspect depended on an aspect, and that aspect on an aspect. And this is to beginningless time. It's never ending, right? So with that, emptiness at this point, it really didn't seem so esoteric. I mean, I was experiencing it. Like all of a sudden, this part of the sutta came front and center for me though next. Kakaganota, Kakanagota, this world mostly inclines to one of two views, existence and non-existence. But when you truly see the origin of the world with right understanding, you won't have the notion of non-existence regarding the world. And when you truly see the cessation of the world with right understanding, you don't have the notion of existence regarding the world. Now, that is confusing as hell, isn't it? So, how could the world exist and not exist simultaneously? I mean, what is going on? And this was, again, the paradoxical question that I've been thinking through since reading the sutta. I was like, what is the deal with this? But the situation gave me some insight. I mean, actual insight. So, think about it this way: the world is phenomena, right? That's what the world is. Everything that we experience, including ourselves, are included in that. So in that meeting, a particular me arose, or you can say originated, when my manager made the statement about me being number one. Now, had my homeboy had made the statement about me being number one, we'd have been high-fiving, we'd have been peacocking, I'd have been talking trash, we'd have been planning vacations. It'd have been a completely different situation. Because the conditions of my relationship with certain friends make that me arise. That's a different me. Right? Those conditions are very different from the conditions I have with my manager. So both of these me's, they exist, sure, obviously, and they show up quite regularly. But are they inherent? Do they inherently exist? They don't inherently exist, right? But why is that? So this brought up another part of the sutta. And this is my favorite part. I love reading this part because it's all of it. Ignorance is a condition for preferences. Preferences are a condition for consciousness. Consciousness is a condition for name and form, six senses, contact, feelings, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, aging, and death. So what this brought to mind for me is a concept, raise your hand if you've heard of Ram Dass. I talk about him all the time. I'm sure you know him. Yeah. So this concept he talked about, where essentially he says our individual worlds are actually constructed of our desires, that we're only even in this world because we still want something. We're greedy, right? He went on to explain that in the process of rebirth, if you believe in this, right, we only return to this plane of existence because we are ignorant enough to still have desires, right? And that ignorance being a lack of understanding of the temporal, insubstantial, and therefore unsatisfactory nature of this existence, like at its essence. But it contains all our desires. So we got to come back. And so what that means that only beings without desire escape the rounds of samsara, right? Resting in the unconditioned, which is nibbana. The important word in nibbana is definitely important, obviously, but unconditioned, right? So in turn, there is nothing present in samsara that is not dependent on something else for its existence. Does that make sense? Okay. So looking back at my interaction with my manager through that lens, we can now answer the why the me presented itself during our meeting doesn't inherently exist. And actually, neither does my manager. That meeting doesn't exist. And anything else we were really talking about. And let's look at the conditions required for this 30-minute meeting. And this won't even be all of them. Both of us had to be born. I know I'm going way back, right? That's to start with, we had to be born. Now, I want you to think about all the things that had to happen for us to be born. I'm not even going to go there. I'll just let y'all ride with that. But we both had to survive long enough to meet each other. The sales had to be a career. We both had to go into sales. We both had to get hired at the same company with an overlap in our tenures. We had to end up on the same sales team again with overlap. She had to excel to become a manager. I'm clearly not good enough. I mean, I can go on and on for a while about this, but I think you guys get the picture. So many conditions had to come in play just for us to have that conversation. And each one of those conditions are empty. And why? I think you all know, because they're all conditioned on so many other conditions, right? That happened before them. So far back, again, unconditioned beginning is not traceable. It's just not. I was getting excited. The insights kept pouring in. And this time, this part of the sutta was the source. The world is for the most part shackled by attraction, grasping and insisting. But if, when it comes to this attraction, grasping, mental fixation, insistence, an underlying tendency towards preferences, very important word, you don't get involved with or cling to these attachments, clingings, fixations of awareness, biases, or obsessions, nor resolved on the idea of myself, you'll have no doubt or uncertainty that what arises is just suffering arising, and what causes suffering is just suffering ceasing. I'm sorry, what ceases is just suffering ceasing. And your knowledge about this is independent of the view of others. And so, second noble truth, all right? This is second noble truth. Craving is obviously the cause of the suffering that we all seek to escape. And the word shackled really stood out to me, especially in our culture. Like Americans are always like, we're born free, right? We're all free. Freedom is free and all that good stuff. Well, we're enslaved to our preferences, aren't we? I mean, our preferences define, like they define our individual worlds. And they give them a false solidity and safety by providing us with hardline beliefs from everything from politics to morality to equality to the lives of people in our world, I mean, the public figures. We forge almost all of our relationships and therefore satiate our human need for belonging based on shared core beliefs. Nothing wrong with it. It's just how we do things. They are our identities, right? Our likes and our dislikes. Stole that from Ram Dass too, so I can't take credit from it. So, how will we even define ourselves without our preferences if you really think about it? So, this way of seeing is obviously at odds with emptiness and again causes a lot of dukkha as we concretize our roles and ideals, and then we take it personal when either is challenged, even with like reasonable data to back up that challenge. And if you think about it, that's very flat-footed, right? It can be very constricting. Whereas to see all phenomena, including all of the selves that define us, as empty is actually quite a spacious way to view life. And I think we all know that spaciousness internally gives us the ability to hold more and also to hold it at a distance, lending to our abilities to have flexible perspectives interacting with what life presents us with, whether it be pleasant or unpleasant, of course, moment to moment, but without collapsing onto many of our individual habitual selves. So I want to offer you another example that, again, brought this whole sutta to life for me. And this one cracked me up. Now, I want you to see if you can count all of the conditions that affected this story. All right. So I was on a work team building trip in Phoenix back during the time I was taking the class. And we'd gone out for dinner and we were ending the night like we always did at a karaoke bar. All right. It was around 11:30 on a Tuesday night. All right. So this is already going really, really well, as you can hear. So everyone but me had been drinking for about 4 hours or so at that point. Bar was pretty loud, and so it was really, really kind of difficult to hear each other screaming across at each other. So there was a woman who was a part of our larger team, but not a part of my immediate team, who joined us, and none of us really knew her very well. I was sitting across the table from a Hispanic teammate named Emily and a black teammate named Kayla when the aforementioned woman, who happened to be white, named Sarah, sat between them, started talking to Emily, the Hispanic woman. So within 5 minutes or so, Emily leans over to me and said that Sarah had gone on what she described as a white power rant. Okay. So this is confusing. So why would a white woman go on a white power rant with her Hispanic work teammate? Right? Okay. This was made even more cloudy by the fact that Sarah was currently engaging with Kayla, the black woman, and they looked to be having a fantastic time, laughing and giggling up. So Emily said that Sarah had made a remark about how we were all going to be in real trouble if Kamala won. This tells you how far back this was. Emily then proceeded to text all of our teammates that were present at the bar and tell them about the rant. Be clear, these are 30 something and 40 something year old people. Just want to give you some context. Drinking. Shortly thereafter, Sarah sat next to me and started a conversation that I'm pretty sure was her hitting on me. I could tell. So I was really confused now. Then another one of my teammates who had gotten a white power rant text sat between Sarah and I and kind of ran Sarah off. I wasn't upset about that, to be honest with you. So Sarah got dejected, got up, went to leave, and I got up and gave her a hug when she left, like I'd done for everybody else that had already left. And everyone marveled at how great a guy I was, the black guy hugging the white supremacist. So I don't know if y'all kept count. I don't know if you could keep count. There were so many conditions there that it was absolutely dizzying. And we don't have time to go through all of them. So let's focus in on like what tied in for me with the sutta. So Sarah's apparent aversion to Kamala Harris and preference for Trump inflamed a bias in Emily that equated someone with those views with white supremacy. She grasped onto this idea and spread it to the team like as an actual truth. The team also having some left-leaning preferences and not knowing Sarah, but of course knowing Emily, they got on board with this truth without even questioning it. So everyone in this scenario was ignorant to the causes and conditions that led to this kerfluffle. The biggest one being everyone's belief in who they thought they were individually. And of course, all of the belief systems that come along with that. So because of the belief, because of that belief, everyone had an individually concretized view of what Sarah's words meant, of what kind of person she was because of that meaning, of her statement's acceptability, and of how she should be related to because of this. Not to mention the copious amounts of alcohol, the loud karaoke bar, the late night, and the various other factors that clearly cannot be ignored as contributors. It's just too much going on. Now, on the contrary, I was, first of all, sober. Secondly, I was very mindfully aware because I was keeping an eye on the group. You know, drunk people can act up, and I needed people not to act up. We had things to do tomorrow. But I want to be clear, there is a me that, as you can see, is a black man. And I've dealt with white supremacy in my life. Another me who is also still against Trump at all costs. Sorry, I had to say it. Just the truth. Another me that would love to see a black woman as president. And another me that also likes to belong. And my whole team was on one accord in that manner. But being mindful of the emptiness of the situation allowed me to not take on any of those personas in that moment and to recognize that I actually did not experience Sarah the way that Emily did. Like her truth slash dukkha, it wasn't mine. I was able to sit back and watch the dukkha rise as Emily reacted to her conversation with Sarah, escalate as word got around about her rant, and pass away within minutes of Sarah leaving as the group turned their attention to other pursuits, mainly more drinking and more karaoke. It was late night, people. So the dukkha did exist, though conditionally. And therefore, it faded away once the main condition faded away. So the dukkha itself was empty. Another thunderclap for me. Bam, right? It revealed to me that I, and everyone else for that matter, including y'all, are free to not be any of our known selves and just let the moment decide. Being mindful of the emptiness of the whole situation allowed a softening of my solidity of my so-called self, whichever ones that would have normally arisen in those type of conditions. And I escaped dukkha because I didn't become one of my default me's in that moment. And a wholesome response spontaneously arose. I gave her a hug. It was fine. And it's rising, gotta tell you, was also conditioned as much as I'd like to take credit for it, right? I practice daily, right? I practice with insight. I practice with the Brahma Viharas. I go on retreats. I take classes. I do all the stuff. So it's conditioned as well. And this is what the teaching promises us, right? That if we're faithful to the practice and hand our attention over to the present moment, that the appropriate responses will arise without selfing being required. So since these two incidents I've described you tonight, I started to understand why the book for this class on emptiness is called Seeing That Frees, and freeze is in getting free. In the book, Rob Berbia, who I absolutely adore, talks about using emptiness as a tool, right? As a way to see ourselves and the happening in our lives as less solid, less fixed, right? less static. So I don't know about y'all, but I've concretized so many aspects of my little personality that I feel imprisoned at times, right? Locked in a paradigm where I have to be a certain way at certain times just out of fear of uncertainty about outcomes and also how others might see and judge these various me's. So this experience, all of it, has turned emptiness for me into a much more practical matter than the ethereal, intimidating matter it used to be for me. And practicing with this new way of seeing has brought more spontaneity into how I move through the world. It has me noticing how much selfing I do in all the areas of my life, and it's given me some space to push back against the constant barrage of habit energy and to kind of expand my repertoire of behaviors as best I can per situation, to be clear. And this is bringing some additional joy to my life. It has also invited more acceptance for the different ways that I show up at different times. So, look, I don't know about y'all, I mess up, and I'm probably going to continue to mess up because I am human. But I see now better that since now I show up, it's conditioned, it's empty. This is how I show up. I can pass on beating myself up for every little infraction. To be clear, this is not in any way a bypass of accountability because we know Sila is like necessary for the path. So I still hold myself accountable for my actions, but I do this by recognizing the behavior is unskillful and working toward eliminating it without talking to myself like I don't like myself. I always thought that was what I had to do to rehab myself, right? You got to be tough on you so you can get it right. I don't think that works because I still do stuff and I've been doing that my whole life. Now, though, I can see how operating like this really just created dukkha in making myself feel less than, but in also concretizing a self that needed to be fixed in the first place. And it also helped me to better understand that if my behaviors are all empty, I mean, then so are everyone else's. So it's easier to have discernment in terms of whether to give a pass to someone behaving unskillfully toward me or to hold that person directly accountable for their actions, right? With the realization of emptiness of actions comes a realization that most things that happen to us really are not that personal. It's not really about us most of the time. And this gives others the ability to show up as they are in their various roles and for us to try to meet them where they are as best we can, right? Getting to know better the different aspects that make up a whole person and therefore not confining them to a specific aspect of themselves. While at the same time protecting myself from being taken advantage of when discernment reveals it is skillful to do so. This is the compassionate action that we hear about with emptiness. You know, it's always talked about like it's I don't care and it's nihilism. It's really not. I've found working with emptiness, it fills me with a bit of compassion and understanding, sympathizing with myself first and others for the conditions that often lead us astray. Again, as best I can. So in closing, I want to leave you with another like uplifting message from Rob Barbia's amazing book in class regarding practice with emptiness and any other practice that we do. Practice should be dynamic and spacious. It should be unbridled by limitation. It should be experimental in some ways, right? Playful, not rigid, dogmatic, stifling. And that's on and off of the cushion. It should be freeing, right? I mean, isn't that why we're all here? Don't we want to be free? So I practiced Hinduism for a couple years, and it was one of the terms that I really, really loved. It's a term called Leela, and they use it to describe life, and it means that life is the play or sport of the divine, right? So it's a game. So with that, the invitation is for us to play our myriad roles with like the vigor and commitment of like a method actor, right? Any of you guys ever seen Man on the Moon or heard about Man on the Moon? Jim Carrey? Right. So it's about Andy Kaufman, but Jim Carrey was cast to play him. And apparently, Jim Carrey was Andy Kaufman 24 hours a day while this was going on, which of course freaked lots of people out. But when the movie was done, he was able to put down his Andy Kaufman role, and I'm pretty sure he became Jim Carrey again. So the invitation for us is to think of emptiness as a way to be fully engaged in the various roles that we inhabit, moment to moment, but not lost in those roles. all the time knowing that our inherent nature is already free and that we have the ability to shake off whatever role we're in when that scene ends and take up the next role that's more suitable for the scene at hand. And eventually, to one day shake off all roles and to realize ultimate freedom. So that was the end of the initial talk that I gave, right? David, thanks for being here, bud. We'll see you. So again, that's how the initial talk ended. On a high note, right? You hear how it sounded? Like I was new to working with these realizations and my approach to like being the new me. I was so excited. I was convinced that I'd found a new way of seeing that was gonna like give me this quantum leap in lessening selfing, like specifically around unwholesome reactivity. And so with some time and experience under my belt, I want to give a quick assessment of how things have gone since I wrote this talk a couple years ago. So, first of all, I will say that this way of seeing is a practice, right? Just like any other attempt that we make to deprogram and reprogram our personal software. So, no quantum leap. No, there's still a good amount of selfing going on right here. Mindfulness in the moment is a prereq for being able to access Anatta, right? And we all know that being mindful moment to moment is tricky, especially with all the distractions and the triggers of life and samsara. But I will say confidently, with regular practice, it's become easier. Without mindfulness, the sea of conditioning that reinforces who I think I am just washes over me like a tidal wave and automatically guides my reactions to life. So, access to this freedom promised by Anatta has been choppy, but certainly way, way more present than before. And this is the thing, and you probably noticed this too. I noticed that there's a lot of unpleasant Vedna when I do buck my conditionality, when I push back, because my cells are fighting tooth and nail to maintain the status quo. And so this freedom doesn't always feel good in my body and mind in that moment. But with that said, there's a clear knowing in me that the long-term payoff from this unpleasant unwinding of myself, I mean, it's so, so worth it. I can already see the results. What did Carl Jung say? Quote, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And so my mini cells are like, anybody seen The Usual Suspects before? Yeah. There's a line in it that reminds me of myself. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. My cells like to hide in the shadow. They want me to think that we are one and the same. And frankly, a good deal of the time, they insert themselves seamlessly into a moment. And before I know what happened, they act on my behalf, unsolicited, of course. But they used to do that all the time, every time. And as stated, with this practice, I can see the percentage is on the decline. They know their days are numbered. And so they're put in a pretty fierce fight. They're fighting for their lives. And so I get it. But their demise is inevitable. As long as I stay the course, like with diligence, with patience, with beginner's mind, as best I can. The Dhamma will deliver, as I've witnessed it do ever since I started to take this practice seriously. And so the bottom line of my recap is I'm experiencing less dukkha working with Anatta in this way, but it ain't easy. Lastly, I want to leave you with this. You might be asking, if we are not this mind, these thoughts, this body, its characteristics, these feelings, these personalities, then what are we actually? So I want to point back to this part of the sutta that I love so much. Again, quote, ignorance is a condition for preferences. Preferences are a condition for consciousness. Consciousness is a condition for name and form, six senses, contact, feelings, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, aging, and death. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. So this sentence and its contents point to what is referred to. I'm sure you've heard of the five aggregates, right? So tune into my next Tuesday night Sangha talk, which is to be determined, and we'll take ourselves apart, aggregate by aggregate, highlighting the relationship between them that coalesces to make us appear to be who you think you are. Thank you for listening.